Your consulting resume is the single most important component that will determine whether you will receive multiple interviews with management consulting firms or zero interviews. On average, your consulting resume will be looked at between 1 to 3 minutes before the reviewer gives your resume a score and moves on to the next resume. Therefore, you need to make sure that your consulting resume best highlights your accomplishments, experiences, and skills. It needs to be clear, concise, and memorable. If you're struggling to craft your resume or unsure if your resume meets the bar, then this video is for you. I'm a former Bain manager and interviewer, and in this video, I'll be reviewing 3 consulting resumes that you, the viewers, have submitted. For each, I'll give my overall impressions and insider strategies and tips on improving each resume. Let's start with the first resume here. This first resume is a current student pursuing a Bachelor's of Science in Germany. Let's take a look at their resume and see how we can improve it. So this is a disguised resume where some of the information has been omitted to protect privacy. Immediately, my initial reaction is the overall resume format, because the student uses 2 columns. It significantly reduces the amount of space available for the resume bullets. In the first left-hand column, there is a ton of empty, wasted white space. On the right-hand column, notice how crowded and cramped the bullets look. A resume bullet that would normally take 2 lines is now occupying 4 lines, making it read like a dense paragraph. Additionally, a lot of the information in the first-hand column can either be omitted or moved elsewhere. This student included a picture, a quote, and an About Me section. These are all not necessary to include and take up valuable space. I'd recommend removing them because they are not standard practice. When it comes to consulting resumes, you want to use a conservative and standard resume format or template. Avoid using anything flashy or unique because it can make your resume stand out for the wrong reasons. Resumes that are more aesthetically designed are more suited for resumes for those looking for design or artistic roles. The contact information listed can be consolidated into a single line at the top of the resume below the student's name. The language section can also be consolidated into a single line at the bottom of the resume by creating a new section called Additional Information. Now let's look at the actual bullets. I'll read the first one here. Conducted comprehensive port and terminal evaluations in Germany for a European mining client, analyzing 10,000 vessels to determine suitable docking categories for 20 terminals. I like how this bullet has numbers in it. The student has tried to quantify exactly what they did. However, this bullet is missing an explanation of the results or impact of their work. How does determining suitable docking categories benefit the company? Does it help them increase revenues, decrease costs, or improve efficiency? It would be best to quantify the results and impact of the work. Let's take a look at the second bullet. Assisted in developing a 25-year strategic port development plan for a major German port, focusing on future logistics and infrastructure requirements. Again, this part is missing quantification of the result and impact. How did this 25-year strategic port plan help or benefit the company? Did the plan outline a way to increase revenues or traffic by 300% over the next 25 years? Did it outline a 6-step approach to improving operational efficiency by 50% and reduce costs by 40%? This theme continues with the third bullet. The student says that they performed analysis of rail freight routes between Germany and Sweden, assessing vulnerabilities in bridge and ferry traffic throughout Denmark. What is the tangible impact of assessing vulnerabilities? We need to define and quantify them. Moving on to the next work experience. The first bullet reads, reduced accounting time by 70% while increasing reconciliation accuracy by 40%. This bullet is great because it quantifies the results and impact of the student. However, it is missing what the student did. How did they do this? Skimming the rest of the bullets in the resume, I noticed that the bullets are quite short. The student should take some time to rewrite these bullets to say what they did and the impact and result of their work. Moving on to the education section, we can probably consolidate the information at these 2 different schools so that they each fit on 2 lines each. Additionally, it would have been nice to include a bullet that summarizes a list of all extracurricular activities, clubs, and awards earned. I'm also not seeing a GPA listed here. Consulting firms typically ask students to include a GPA in their resume. There are also two other things missing from this resume. Given the amount of space we are saving by making some of these changes, it'd be great to see an extracurricular activities section and an additional information section. An extracurricular activities section is typically used for students that don't have much work experience. This way, they can list out their major involvements in clubs, side hustles, or volunteer experiences and write bullets for them. As for the additional information section, this is where you would include a list of your skills, such as programming languages and data analysis tools, languages that you speak, and interests or hobbies, which make your resume more interesting to read. Overall, I think there is quite a bit more the student can do to improve their consulting resume to best highlight their experiences, achievements, and skills. If you're finding this video helpful and want to see more videos like this, please take a second to give this video a like. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more consulting and case interview content. Let's move on to the next resume. The second resume is from a manager at KPMG in Australia that is trying to make the transition from tax advisory to consulting. Let's take a look at their resume and see how we can improve it. My immediate reaction to this resume is that the format is fairly clean and easy to read. However, the font size is a bit small. This person uses a 10-point font for the majority of the resume. I would recommend increasing that to at least an 11-point font. You don't want to give your resume reviewer eye strain and make it difficult for them to read your resume. This could put them in a bad mood or make them annoyed with your resume. I also notice at the bottom of the resume, there is a lot of blank space. Consulting resume space is valuable, so let's use this space to either add more bullets or add more details or specifics to your bullets. Let's take a look at the actual bullets now. For the first bullet, led cross-functional 11-person team in 2 locations to prepare tax audit memorandum evaluating risks associated with tax positions valued over $10 million as part of audit of ASX 10 client. My main feedback here is that this person does a great job using numbers to describe what they did. However, similar to the first resume we looked at, not enough words are spent describing the tangible impact of their work. How does preparing tax audit memorandum benefit the company? Did you help the company achieve a 100% tax compliance rate? Did you help the company save hundreds of hours in their tax preparation? Or did you identify millions of dollars of tax savings opportunities for the client? My other feedback for this bullet is that some people might not understand what an ASX 10 client is. My understanding is that this means that the client is one of the 10 largest companies in Australia. Instead of saying ASX 10, perhaps saying that the company is a $100 billion client instead, and use the company's market cap to describe how large it is. Let's take a look at the second bullet. Developed tax readiness strategy for a major Australian member organization by designing a key issues framework. Identified 5 critical risk areas and provided solutions to manage each risk. Similar feedback here to the first bullet. What was the result or impact of developing the tax readiness strategy? Did it help save hours of tax prep time? Did it identify tax savings opportunities? Can we quantify the tangible impact that you made by creating this tax strategy? Another piece of feedback here is that I typically don't like using semicolons. Each bullet should read as a single sentence. By having a semicolon split the bullet into 2, it reads more as 2 separate sentences. Therefore, instead of using a semicolon, I'd recommend using a conjunction to make the bullet a single sentence, or split the bullet into 2 distinct bullets. Now let's take a look at the third bullet. Here, the person talks about the results of their efforts. They were able to secure 2 new clients. However, I'd recommend further quantifying this by describing how much these 2 new clients were worth to the company. Did these 2 new clients sign engagements with KPMG worth $10 million, for example? In a resume, we typically list the result at the end of the bullet. So, we may want to consider flipping the order of what we are saying. You could say, acted as the lead specialist for a 3-month period and conducted workshop sessions to present the firm's market-leading reporting tool, ultimately securing 2 new clients and bringing in $10 million of business. I think that this sounds much better. I'm going to move on to the education section. For the first school listed, it would be nice to include a bullet that lists a summary of all extracurricular activities, awards, and test scores to summarize your school experience without taking too much room. For the second school listed, I think you should consolidate the first 3 bullets into a single one to save space. Also, you mentioned achieving a distinction average. What does this mean? Is it the top 15% of students or the top 30% of students? Remember, resume reviewers did not necessarily go to your school, so they might not know this. Let's look at the extracurricular activities. If you have meaningful volunteer experiences, I would include a full bullet that quantifies the results and impact of your work, similar to what you would do for work experience. For the board member bullet, I'd like to see you quantify the results and impact of your work there. And finally, moving on to the personal section. I would just call this additional information instead. For skills, no need to list Microsoft Office. Every single person knows how to use Microsoft Office, so it doesn't really add much to your resume to include this. I'd only include skills like R, SQL, programming languages, and data analysis tools. Else remove the skills part. You did a good job listing your languages and your proficiencies. And finally, for interests, I try to make some of your interests more specific and interesting. What do you like reading? Morning walks to a local cafe doesn't sound that interesting or memorable, to be honest, so I'd pick something else. For investing, maybe specify which cryptocurrencies you're interested in. Overall, there's a lot of good content on this resume, but we need to do a better job quantifying your impact and results. Let's move on to the third resume. The third resume is from a student that is currently pursuing a master's degree in human security and development in Denmark. They come from a non-traditional background that is not business related nor quantitative related. Let's take a look at the resume and see how we can improve it. Immediately, my first impression of the resume is that it looks incredibly crowded. The margins of the resume are almost non-existent. I'd recommend at least using a 0.25-inch margin around all sides of the resume. This white space is important because it helps make the resume look less crowded. Additionally, I'm not a fan of this blue color background at the top. I'd recommend that you stick to a standard resume format or template that is black and white and doesn't have any graphics or fancy design. I would also order the sections of the resume in a slightly different order. I'd put work experience first, then extracurricular activities, and finally, keep additional skills at the bottom. Consulting firms value work experience a lot, whether that's internships or part-time jobs, so I would list that first. Let's look at the education section first. For the first school listed, there is no need to list out the courses that you took. Most of the time, consulting firms ask you to upload a school transcript, so no need to take valuable real estate space on your resume listing courses. Good job listing your GPA and also specifying how selective the scholarship that you got was. For coursework projects, you should assume the resume reviewer is not going to click these links and read more about the projects. Instead, I would leave these projects off since they are related to your classes. However, if there is a project that you think is really impressive, you can dedicate a full bullet to it and describe what you did and quantify the results or impact of your work. For the second school listed, again, remove the list of courses you took. I think you can consolidate the next 4 bullets into a single bullet that summarizes all of your awards to save yourself resume space. Let's move on to the work experience section. The first bullet reads, verified current datasets and created dashboards from Power BI to present to 70+ policymakers and economics. I have similar feedback for you as the first 2 resumes we reviewed. What is the tangible impact or result of presenting to these policymakers and economists? Did they ultimately take some kind of action to pass policy to improve the world? Did 100% of these policymakers agree with your research? Was your research cited in 40+ articles? For the second bullet, I have the same feedback. You said that you examined online pricing trends contributing to the quarterly assessment of living wages in 30+ regions. What was the impact of the quarterly assessment of living wages? Were you able to help living wages increase by 10%? Were you able to identify that 20% of the regions needed living wage increases? Quickly skimming your resume, I see just one bullet where you quantify your results. The bullet reads, advised Revila on their current webpage and app design, conducted 2 A/B tests, leading to a 126% increase in average session duration and pages per session. This is a great bullet. You explained and quantified the results of your work. However, for all other bullets, it looks like the results section of each bullet is missing. I'd recommend spending time going through each bullet to include quantification of the results or impact. Moving on to the extracurricular achievements section, when you say that you are ranked second, it would be nice to indicate out of how many people or teams to make this achievement sound more impressive. Similarly, for your top 15 finish in the case competition, specifying out of how many people would help improve the impressiveness of this bullet. You may also be able to combine these two bullets into one where you just list out where you placed in these competitions. For the Model United Nations activity, let's try quantify the results of you welcoming more than 200 delegates from 21 partner universities. Were you able to increase attendance by 30%, for example? In your second bullet, you said you received $1 million of funding. Is this a lot? Can we benchmark it to something to give the reader a sense of the impressiveness of this? And for the third bullet, specify how selective it is to be selected as a project of the Japan Forum. Are only 5 projects selected out of 100, for example? Lastly, quickly looking at the additional skills. We can remove Microsoft Suite and Google Workspace since everyone knows how to use these things. I'd combine the Office software and design skills with programming skills and order these technical skills from most relevant to least relevant. For languages, instead of specifying IELTS 8.0 and JLPTN2, I just specify whether you are native, fluent, professional working proficiency, or limited working proficiency, or basic. Not everyone knows what these designations mean. Lastly, the other skills section doesn't really add much to your resume. Anyone can list these skills, and these skills should already be evidenced in your resume bullets, so I would actually delete this row. Overall, a lot of good content in the resume, but we just need to spend more time quantifying the results and impact of your work. Similar feedback to the other 2 resumes that we looked at today. Now you've seen exactly how resumes are reviewed by consulting firms. Take the time to look at your own resume and assess it. Are there any strategies or tips that we've covered that you can implement to drastically improve your chances of landing an interview? And if you're looking to get some help crafting the perfect consulting resume and want your resume reviewed by me, you can check out our resume review service in the video description below. Good luck.